Welcome back, everyone, to Echoes of Ihsan. Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating journey, I think,
Yeah.
exploring the sacredness of Medina through the lens of Sahih Bukhari,
Mm.
specifically Book 30, Virtues of Madinah,
Mm.
and, you know, just diving into these hadiths really gives you a glimpse into what made this city, so much more than just a city.
It really is captivating, when you start to think about it. Medina, it transcended its physical form. It was an idea, a
Yeah.
community forged in those early days of Islam, this sanctuary, a space where faith could just flourish.
And to think that, the Prophet Muhammad himself walked those streets,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah, you can almost feel his presence there, right? How his teaching shaped everything.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really struck me as we were, going through this material was this concept of Medina as a sanctuary.
Right.
Almost like, stepping into a sacred bubble, a space set apart.
It's not just metaphorical either. The Prophet Muhammad, he actually defined those boundaries, those physical boundaries of Medina, stretching from one Herat mountain to the other. And within these limits, certain actions were strictly prohibited.
Like what?
You couldn't cut down trees, for instance. In committing sins, it was considered even graver than elsewhere.
It's like the air itself was like different.
Exactly. Charged with this heightened sense of the divine.
Wow. And the consequences for, those who violated that sanctity, they were pretty severe, right?
Oh, absolutely. The hadiths are very clear about that. Those who dared to, break the peace and the sanctity of Medina, they would incur the curse of Allah, the angels, all of humanity.
Wow.
It underscores the weight of the Prophet's declaration. Medina wasn't just a city, it was a sacred trust, a responsibility.
Yeah. There's one hadith that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
The Prophet, he went to the tribe of Bani Haritha,
Mm-hmm.
and he saw they'd gone outside the sanctuary boundaries. But then when he, took a closer look, he realized that they were actually still within that designated area. And he reassured them. It shows how carefully these boundaries were observed, even by the Prophet himself.
It really speaks volumes about the mindset, doesn't it? They understood this wasn't just about physical lines on a map. It was about an internal commitment.
Yeah.
This idea of Medina as a sanctuary, it also ties into this concept of transformation.
Well, absolutely. That's what I think is so fascinating, this idea that a place can actually shape the people who live within it.
Right.
It's like the city itself is a catalyst for growth.
The Prophet, he used this really powerful analogy. He compared Medina to a furnace that refines iron. Just as a furnace removes those impurities and leaves behind pure metal,
Or like that.
Medina, it had this power to purify its inhabitants, encouraging righteous conduct and discouraging anything negative.
It's a beautiful analogy. I love that. Are there any stories from the Hadiths that kind of illustrate this purifying aspect of Medina?
Oh, absolutely. There's a hadith about a Bedouin who came to the Prophet and embraced Islam. And the very next day, he fell ill with a fever. And he asked the Prophet to cancel his pledge.
He wanted to leave.
He wanted to leave Medina, yeah.
Oh, wow.
He thought the city was the cause of his illness.
Interesting. So he, associated his hardship with being in Medina.
Right.
What did the Prophet say to that?
The Prophet, in his wisdom, refused his request. Not once, but 3 times. He said, Medina is like a furnace. It expels the impurities, the bad persons, and selects the good ones and makes them perfect. It's like he was saying those challenges, those trials, they're actually opportunities.
Yeah, to grow.
Exactly. To grow, to be refined.
It flips the script, right?
Yeah.
Instead of running from hardship, you embrace it.
Embrace it, yes, as a chance to grow.
Wow. That's a powerful message, especially, for us today.
It is, isn't it?
It suggests that the spaces we inhabit, they can have a profound impact on us, on our spiritual development.
Yeah, for sure. And Medina is like the ultimate example of that.
Right. Maybe it's a call for us to be more mindful, create environments that foster our own growth,
Yeah.
even amidst all the chaos of modern life.
I think that's a beautiful takeaway. And this idea of transformation, it's not just about individuals. It's also about Medina's role in shaping the foundations of, Islamic history. It was more than just a sanctuary. It was the birthplace of a civilization.
Yeah, and that's where I think it gets really interesting, because the Prophet's arrival in Medina, it was like this pivotal moment.
Absolutely.
It marked the beginning of a community that would eventually spread across the world.
Right, and one of the first things the prophet did upon arriving, establishing a mosque.
Yeah, the mosque.
This wasn't just a building, it was the heart of this nascent Muslim community, a place for prayer, gathering, learning, even governance in those early days.
And speaking of the mosque, there's a beautiful story about its construction. The prophet, he approached the Bani Najjar tribe, who owned the land, and he asked them for the price, ready to compensate them fairly.
Their response is just remarkable.
Oh, it's incredible.
We do not want its price except from Allah. Imagine that level of devotion, donating their land, seeking only God's reward.
That's incredible. It speaks volumes about the spirit of the early Muslims.
Absolutely. They understood this was about something bigger than themselves.
Yeah. And the construction itself involved some pretty significant changes, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. There were pagan graves on the land, which the prophet ordered to be removed. They leveled the ground, date palm trees were cut down and repurposed as pillars.
Wow.
Facing the Qibla. It was this transformation, physical, that mirrored the spiritual transformation happening all around.
Yeah, they were creating a new space, physically and spiritually, for this growing community.
Exactly, laying the foundation for a new society based on Islamic principles.
And the Hadiths also give us glimpses into everyday life in Medina, even like its natural environment.
Oh, absolutely. There's that Hadith about Abu Huraira who wouldn't chase deer even when he saw them grazing in Medina.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual, right?
It might seem that way. But Abu Huraira, he was deeply aware of the Prophet's declaration. He understood that this sanctity, this protection, it extended even to the animals.
Wow.
It paints this beautiful picture of harmony, Even nature was in sync with the sacredness of the city.
A true sanctuary in every sense of the word.
Exactly. And that harmony, that balance, it was reflected in the lives of the people as well.
Yeah.
But there's another dimension to Medina's story. It's not just about the past. It's intertwined with prophecies about the future.
Right, like the end times.
Exactly.
And I remember reading about Medina's role in those prophecies, specifically in relation to the Dajjal.
Right.
The Antichrist figure in Islamic tradition.
It's described as a protected city, a place the Dajjal won't be able to enter.
Like completely impenetrable.
The Hadiths talk about angels guarding the 7 gates of Medina.
Wow.
Forming this barrier against the Dajjal.
Like a fortress.
Yes, a refuge for believers in the face of, ultimate evil.
It's such vivid imagery. It's like, a beacon of light amidst all that darkness.
Right.
Do the Hadiths tell us anything more about what will happen in Medina during that time?
They do, actually.
Yeah.
They mention that Medina will shake 3 times, expelling those who don't truly believe and the hypocrites.
Oh, wow. Before the Dajjal arrives.
Yes, before the Dajjal's arrival, it's like this purification process.
It's like a cleansing.
Exactly, a spiritual cleansing before this major event.
Medina purifying itself from within before facing that external threat.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Are there any hadiths that describe like a direct encounter between the Dajjal and someone from Medina?
There is actually a very fascinating hadith that recounts this, yes.
Oh, tell me.
The Dajjal arrives at the outskirts of Medina, in this barren wasteland, and this righteous man, filled with faith and courage, will confront him there, proclaiming his belief that the Dajjal is the false Messiah spoken of by the Prophet Muhammad.
Wow. It's like good versus evil, truth versus deception. It's like high stakes.
It really is.
So what happens? Does the Dajjal, does he try to prove his power or something?
He does. To try and intimidate this man, the Dajjal will kill him and then bring him back to life.
Okay.
As this display of, his supposed power over life and death.
Does the righteous man waver at all?
Not at all. Even after being resurrected, the man reaffirms his faith,
Really?
declaring that now he recognizes the Dajjal's true nature even more clearly than before.
Oh, wow.
The Dajjal, enraged, tries to kill him again.
Can he do it? Can he kill him a second time?
No, he can't.
He can't.
The Dajjal finds himself completely unable to harm the man any further.
Wow. That's powerful.
It's this testament to the power of true faith, a faith that even death can extinguish.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even when facing like incredible deception, incredible trials, belief in God provides that ultimate strength.
Absolutely. And this story highlights the special status of, the people of Medina, those who chose to live in the city of the Prophet.
Right. So did they always stay in Medina? Or did they ever consider leaving?
Well, the Hadiths, while emphasizing those blessings of residing in Medina, they also mention instances where people thought about leaving,
Okay.
often driven by, worldly desires. Like, for example, after the conquest of Yemen, some people considered migrating there.
Maybe they were attracted by, the wealth, the opportunity.
Exactly. Those sorts of things.
That's understandable,
Yeah.
especially during a time of, conquest, expansion. So what was the Prophet's reaction?
Well, he gently urged his followers to remain in Medina, emphasized that staying in Medina was ultimately better for them, even if they couldn't see it at that moment.
So he understood that, sometimes we're drawn to what seems appealing on the surface without realizing the true value of what we already have.
Precisely. He had that wisdom.
Were there other instances of, people considering leaving Medina?
Yes. After the conquests of Sham and Iraq, for example,
Mm-hmm.
some people thought about migrating to those lands. Again, the Prophet advised against it.
It's like he was guiding them toward, a deeper understanding
Yes.
of what truly matters.
Or truly matters, yes.
And all of this, it seems to reflect, a deep affection that the Prophet had for Medina.
Oh, absolutely. The Prophet's love for Medina, it's palpable in the Hadiths.
Yeah.
It's in his words, his actions, even his emotional responses.
Do we have any specific examples of that?
Yes, there's a Hadith where the Prophet prays for Allah to bless Medina twice as much as he blessed Mecca.
Twice as much as Mecca. That's quite a statement,
It is.
especially considering the significance of Mecca, the birthplace of Islam.
It reveals how deeply Medina was woven into the fabric of the Prophet's heart, Medina wasn't just a place for him, it was the embodiment of his vision for a just and compassionate society.
Are there any other examples of his love for Medina that you can recall?
There's one that's particularly heartwarming.
Mm-hmm.
It tells us that whenever the Prophet returned to Medina after a journey, his mount would start galloping as soon as it caught sight of the city walls.
Oh, wow. I can almost picture that scene, the Prophet filled with longing and joy, urging his mount forward,
Eager to return.
eager to return to his beloved city.
And this love, it wasn't just a personal sentiment. He encouraged his followers to share in it.
Like with the Bani Salama tribe.
Exactly. They wanted to relocate closer to the mosque.
To be closer to the center of worship.
But the Prophet, in his wisdom, he encouraged them to stay where they were. He explained that every step they took towards the mosque from their current location was a source of reward.
It's like, he took what could have been seen as an inconvenience, the distance,
Yeah.
and turned it into an opportunity
Exactly.
for spiritual growth.
He did. It emphasizes the importance of, intention, awareness.
Yeah.
Even a simple act like walking to the mosque could be a source of blessing.
Yeah. The Prophet was teaching them to see Medina not just as a physical space, but as a landscape,
Yeah.
Imbued with meaning,
Yes.
where even the ordinary could become extraordinary.
Precisely. And that's, I think, one of the most powerful lessons
Yeah.
that we can take from the Prophet's example, It's about cultivating that awareness, that sense of the sacred in our own lives.
Even amidst, the busyness of our modern world.
Absolutely.
It's about finding that connection with the divine in every step,
In every step, in every action.
in every action we perform.
It's a beautiful thought. And it brings us to another aspect of Medina's story. Its connection to Ihsan.
Oh, Ihsan. Striving for excellence. Doing things beautifully for the sake of God. How did that manifest in Medina? What made it such fertile ground for this principle?
Well, imagine Medina as this training ground for your soul.
Hmm.
It wasn't just about following the rules. It was about doing everything with such deep intention, such awareness, that every act became an act of worship.
So infusing every aspect of life with the sacred.
Exactly, connecting with God in every moment.
And Medina, with its sacred atmosphere, with the Prophet's presence, it was the perfect environment for this, right?
Absolutely. The community's commitment to living by those Islamic principles, it created this space where Ihsan could truly flourish.
Do you have any specific examples from the Hadiths that, illustrate this connection?
Let's go back to that hadith about the Bani Salama tribe wanting to relocate closer to the mosque. The Prophet encouraged them to stay where they were, reminding them that every step they took towards the mosque, no matter the distance, was filled with reward.
It's amazing how he found, beauty and virtue in these everyday actions.
That's the essence of Ihsan.
Yeah.
Finding the sacred in the mundane, infusing every moment with intention and devotion.
So they were embodying Ihsan by staying in their homes, walking that extra distance.
Without a doubt, they were expressing their love for God through an act that might have seemed ordinary to others.
Right,
And
right.
the Prophet recognized that.
Yeah. It's a reminder that Ihsan isn't about, these grand gestures. It's about bringing our hearts and minds to every single moment.
Every single moment, no matter how small.
Right, right. And Medina became this model for that way of life.
It did. And this legacy of Ihsan resonates with Muslims today, even though we may not physically live in Medina.
So how can we bring that spirit into our lives
Mm.
today in the modern world?
It's about cultivating sincerity in our intentions, striving for excellence in all that we do, and seeking to connect with God in every moment.
Yeah,
By doing this, we create our own Medina,
our own Medina.
our own space of spiritual sanctuary wherever we are.
That's a powerful thought, that the essence of Medina can transcend those physical boundaries.
It can.
It can become part of our own journeys.
It can. By embodying those principles, we tap into that energy, that same spirit of devotion.
Yeah, this has been really eye-opening, this deep dive into Medina,
It's a fascinating city.
exploring its history, its spiritual significance, its connection to Ihsan.
And it helps us understand the profound impact that Medina has had on the Muslim world.
Yeah, and the story continues, doesn't it? The legacy of Medina.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
inspires generations of Muslims to seek that spiritual excellence.
Right. And to build communities that reflect those values so beautifully embodied in Medina.
As we move on to our next segment, I want to encourage everyone listening to think about what we've discussed. How can you cultivate Ihsan in your own life?
How can you create those spaces of sanctuary within yourself and within the communities you belong to?
Yeah. These are questions worth pondering, especially as we continue exploring the richness of Islamic tradition.
And for now, we'll take a pause and return soon to delve even deeper into the mysteries and marvels of Medina.
And we're back, continuing our deep dive into the heart of Medina. It's incredible how a single place can be so historically and spiritually significant.
It really is. Medina, it's almost like a lens, focusing the essence of those Islamic teachings,
Yeah.
illuminating their timeless relevance.
Absolutely. And we've explored so much already. Medina as a sanctuary, its power to purify, the Prophet's love for the city, and even that connection to the idea of Ihsan. But there's one thing I'd love to touch on a bit more. Medina's relationship with the wider Muslim community.
Yes, a crucial aspect, because
Yeah.
Medina, from its very beginning, it wasn't meant to be this isolated utopia.
Right.
It always had this global vision.
It seems like, Medina was never meant to be exclusive. The Prophet Muhammad himself migrated there, established this community that welcomed people from all walks of life.
Exactly.
It's like that inclusivity is part of his very DNA.
It wasn't a city just for those born within its walls or those belonging to specific tribes.
Yeah.
Medina embraced everyone who embraced Islam. It became this melting pot of cultures, ideas,
Right.
a vibrant tapestry woven from those diverse backgrounds.
Yeah, that diversity must have contributed to, its unique energy.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Think about it. People from different regions, all with their own perspectives, skills, knowledge, coming together, enriching that social fabric. It's a testament to the unifying power of Islam.
Yeah.
Showing how faith can transcend those cultural and geographical boundaries.
Even in those early days, it was like a microcosm of the Ummah.
Exactly.
That concept so central to Islam.
A living, breathing example of those principles of unity and brotherhood, transcending tribal affiliations and geographical limitations. It reminds us that we're all interconnected, bound by our faith, our commitment to God.
And that vision, nurtured in Medina, it spread far and wide.
It did. As Islam spread across the globe, Medina served as this model for how to establish those just and compassionate societies. The principles of governance, social welfare, community building, they became a blueprint.
So Medina wasn't just a city, it was a beacon.
A shining example of what a truly Islamic society could be.
A testament to the transformative power of Islam.
Right, showcasing its ability to create these societies based on harmony, justice, prosperity for all.
It's a reminder that faith is not just, rituals and beliefs.
No,
It's a way of life, a path towards building a better world.
it is.
And this legacy continues to inspire Muslims today,
It does.
reminding us of our interconnectedness, our responsibility to contribute to, a more just and compassionate world.
The story of Medina reminds us that Islam is not just this personal journey. It's a collective effort, a call to action, to create a world where compassion, justice, understanding, they prevail.
Yeah. It reinforces that idea that we're all part of the Ummah,
Yeah.
regardless of our differences.
We are.
And that we have this duty to uphold those values.
Compassion, justice, unity.
Yes.
So, as we conclude our deep dive into Medina, let's carry these insights with us.
Yeah.
Let them guide us as we navigate our own lives and strive to make a positive impact on the world.
May the echoes of Ihsan, resonating from the heart of Medina,
Right.
inspire us to cultivate that excellence in all that we do and contribute to a world where peace and justice flourish.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yeah.
May the blessings of Medina be with you always.
And until our next deep dive, may your hearts be filled with the light of knowledge and the pursuit of Ihsan